Alright. Hi, you guys. This is Nick Fitzpatrick of the Fitz Files. Reviews and ideas from a simple man-child. That's the working title, at least. Luckily, for this first video, I'm pretty much relying on Facebook friends and people I'm close to. And, I have no online presence whatsoever. I'm actually sitting at my piano right now. It's where I'm used to doing little videos and stuff like that, and I make music and stuff like that, and I swear I cannot get anyone to click. I don't know what that means. It's probably not good, but no online presence whatsoever. So my Facebook friends, my friends in general, I'm hoping that some people can just kind of watch this first one and help me out a little bit. So basically the idea I had for this little channel, little YouTube series I'm doing, most people who know me know I am obsessed, absolutely obsessive about films. Anyone who calls them films is probably a bit of a cinephile, but since I was little, my Nana, who I absolutely worshipped, God rest her soul, she passed away when I was 24, it fucking killed me, but she and I actually went to the movies. We went to a theater on Beck. I can't remember what the hell it was called. Wow, Plaza 8. Went to Plaza 8 all the time. We went to, the new movie theater when they made it. We went to Kansas City when something really special was playing. But every Sunday, until I was probably 18 or 19 years old, I would go to the Sizzler or a buffet of some kind with my grandma and grandpa, and then me and my grandma would go see a movie. All over the place when it comes to range of movies. She also let me see rated R films pretty early on, which I really appreciate because she kind of helped form my tastes a little bit with that. She also suffered through movies she fucking hated, like The Matrix Reloaded. She never forgave me for that one. I loved it, but she wasn't a fan. And yeah, some others. Austin Powers 2. She was a little embarrassed about that one. I was a little bit too, but I don't know, man. Just thinking about it makes me happy. But I've been obsessed with movies ever since, very much because of my grandma. And this October, and October means pretty much one thing, and that's horror. Let's get spooky. I love October every day. I kind of make Halloween because I don't actually celebrate Halloween that much. I don't get dressed up, or I don't do costumes very well. I'm just kind of boring in that sense. I don't party anymore at all, so I really don't go to a Halloween parties or anything like that. So October for me is just, you could probably hear my dog chewing the hell out of a fucking toy over there, but October for me is pretty much every night is a new horror movie that I'm gonna watch, and I make lists. I actually make lists of the movies that I've seen that I want to rewatch, and movies that I haven't seen yet that I've heard great things about. So since October 1st, every night, when I get off work and I settle down, you finally get in that headspace where you can lay down and relax, I turn on one of these movies, and I almost try to take notes sometimes, especially when I thought I was going to do this channel. I wanted to jot down things, but I can never get myself to do it because I want to watch, and I want to be engrossed in it, and so I never really distract myself with taking notes. So I'll pretty much just be going off of what I'm thinking, spur of the moment, as I go through these. So some of the movies that I've watched, I'll just go ahead and kind of list a few that I'm going to talk about. There's not a lot of really new ones, to be perfectly honest. I watched Gretel and Hansel just last week, and it's not that new. I guess it was probably less than a year ago. I think it was actually released in 2020, which has been a pretty horrific year, obviously. But I fucking loved it. I'm gonna talk a little more in depth about it, but I loved Gretel and Hansel. I think it was not it got good reviews. I know it got good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but any horror movie that's a slow burn, where it's not immediate with the jump scares. It kind of is more nuanced, and they really just set the tone. They really develop the characters. There's like a really uh, thorough setting, like The Witch. You know, A24's Roger Robert Eggers. I can't remember his exact name, but he did The Witch, and that whole movie, it's just like really setting up like these Quakers or the Puritan society and how they are, and this wilderness that they're kind of, you know, abolished to. And you know, that kind of slow setup, it takes time, and if you care about the characters, you care what happens to them. So that makes horror so much more effective. So in Gretel and Hansel, there's really nothing like absolutely terrifying about it, except for, you know, the actual story, which in itself is pretty terrifying. A couple kids lost in the woods, meet a nice lady, you know, a fucking feast every night, and then she wants to cook them and eat them. So that's a scary premise. It's scary enough. So what they did in that movie is they set up this atmosphere. It really follows Gretel more than anything. And this channel is not going to be about spoilers, so I'm not going to really spoil anything. But it really follows Gretel, and Hansel is very codependent. He's still young, and he's really, really, really attached to her. And she loves him, absolutely loves him, and protects him at all costs. Their mother is ill, I think mentally ill. She doesn't seem to give two shits about them. She really doesn't. There's been some family history. I'm not going to give anything away, but they are pretty much left to leave as children and go, you know, through the forest to some destination of safety, which is far away, and probably, you know, who knows if they're going to get there, and they have to go alone. So that is very scary. But the atmosphere is just so eerie. It's like nothing intense is really happening. Nothing crazy in your face is happening, but the score and everything is telling you it's coming. It's coming. And if you're like me, that suspense, the way they build on that suspense, it is very fun. And by the end of it, as long as they don't fuck up the ending, it can be a very, very enjoyable ride. And that's what I found about that movie. They get to the witch. They don't know she's a witch, obviously. And Gretel, you know, she immediately has some. She's not sold on her niceness. You know, there's a really little scary scene where Hansel gets lost a second. Like I say, I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets great. And by the end of it, it really does have some really intense meaning. So I gave Gretel and Hansel I gave it an A-. And I don't think a lot of people, I think it's not for everybody. It really isn't. So don't go into it thinking that that you're going to have like the most intense, like slasher kind of, you know, Final Destination, Saw kind of ride. You know, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be more atmospheric. It's going to be more based on character development and cinematography that is absolutely, like, I know it's a cliche thing, but it's profoundly beautiful. It's such a beautifully shot film, and I know that's why the critics loved it. And I hate to say it, but I agree with the general consensus a lot of the time with the critics. So it is what it is. Okay, so moving on. That was one of the newer ones that I watched. I saw one yesterday, actually, last night, with some friends, and I got to go to a house that was actually like pretty. It was on Ashland, and there was like a little movie theater, like a real home movie theater. And I was pretty, I mean, it was dope. It was pretty cool. So me and my friends, just a couple friends, we watched a movie that I hadn't put on my list. I've always wanted to see it, but it always kind of passed me by. And they actually picked it, and I got really excited. And that was Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods blew my mind. I had no idea what it was about. So I think that, I just dropped my lighter. Sorry, it helps me. Helps me keep going. I had no idea what it was about. No clue. I saw that Chris Hemsworth was in it. I was like the main Hemsworth, like the major Hemsworth, the Thor Hemsworth. That's okay. They got him. Okay, this might be. He's pretty good. I love Thor Ragnarok. I haven't seen any of the others, but Taika Waititi did Thor Ragnarok, so that's pretty good. Um, and then I saw some other familiar faces. I watched Grey's Anatomy. I like that show. I'm sorry, it's a guilty shame, but it's good writing, I think. So one of the characters, Avery, he's a plastic surgeon in Grey's Anatomy. He is in it. So I was really excited to see him in a film role, and he did a pretty good job. So Cabin in the Woods is this setup where, and I'm not going to spoil it because it is, I'm just going to tell you I loved the ending. The ending was everything. But Cabin in the Woods is not like Gretel and Hansel. Cabin in the Woods gets going. Like, once it gets going, you're not going to, like, chill. You're not going to have a very relaxed experience. It's about these, I don't know, they're like 20-somethings, and they, group of friends, some of them coupled up, some of them not. All, like, real cliche archetypes. Like, you got your stoner, you know, someone I probably connected to more when I was, like, 20, like 10 years ago, who's just always, like, thinking about, like, conspiracy theories, and, you know, he thinks these puppets, he's like a puppet, and someone's pulling the strings, you know, he's just very, very cliche, but he does a good job with it. It's very satirical, so it works, and it's very funny, and he's a funny character. Chris Hemsworth plays this, like, jock type, and he's kind of an asshole, like, not even kinda, he is an asshole, but he does it well. I notice he cannot do an American accent, and I think that's kind of funny, because it almost worked for this movie, because he had, like, a different little twang, or a different kind of, like, accent in every fucking scene, and I thought that was very funny. And then, you know, you had your virgin character, or kind of a virgin character, the closest you can get in this day and age. And then you had your kind of, you know, kind of looser gal kind of character, a gal who's not afraid to have a good time. And you better not like slut shame her or anything like that, because you know, they can party just like guys, and this one did. This was a party gal. I don't know. So basically, they're having a good time. They're like on a cabin on a nice lake. They play water sports, go swimming. They're having a fucking ball. This guy, the stoner, had like more weed than I've ever seen in my fucking life, and he's rolling it all like right then and there. So they've got some entertainment. They eventually, however, wander to the basement, which is a kind of a pretty standard trope in horror films, and they end up somehow unlocking this element of real danger, and zombies start attacking them. And I'm talking like, these are the scariest looking zombies that I've ever seen in a film. And I've seen a lot of zombie movies. I don't actually like zombie movies that much. I love Night of the Living Dead, George Romero's stuff, you know, but Dawn of the Dead, the remake Zack Snyder did, was really good. But I'm not a huge fan because there's so many. Walking Dead was good for a few seasons, and I was just, all right, I'm done. But these zombies don't look like just like people that died and are walking around. These are some crazy, like, make-upped out, crafty little zombies. Like, one literally has like a saw that's like going around his head. I can't even explain it, but it is so scary. Like, I didn't really sleep last night. It was really fucking fucked up. And it's graphic. It is brutal. I actually sometimes have a hard time with brutal horror movies. Like, I don't know, it gets too much sometimes. I like more psychological horror, supernatural stuff. But this one, it was the satirical element, because there are, like, I mean, it's not a secret. Like, if you watch the trailer, you know people are pulling their strings. You just don't know exactly why or what's going on. And the payoff is phenomenal. It is so fun. Really, really good. So definitely catch that. I gave it a fucking A+, because I thought it had the originality. I think James Gunn, I can't remember who did what. I know it has some great writers. I feel like someone from, like, I don't know. I can't tell if it's the same dude who did, like, Brightburn and Guardians of the Galaxy. It probably wasn't, but I should have researched that, but that would be too much like planning. That's just not my thing. All right, so I'm not going to review as many movies as I originally thought, but I also wanted to talk about some of my very favorites, like the cornerstones of today's horror and some past ones. But I want to talk about how good horror's gotten for just a second. Like, horror has always been one of, if not my favorite genre, and I feel like we've reached a point where there are horror movies that are way better than some of like the big Oscar bait films. Let's talk about Ari Aster. He made Hereditary, and Hereditary blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. I'm not going to talk about it that much. I'm going to say you need to see it. It's almost better if you have no idea what you're going into. Toni Collette needed to win an Oscar for that movie, and I think a couple other people involved did too. Ari Aster writes and directs his own films, and he's made Hereditary, and he made an even better movie called Midsummer. And Midsummer is just as original as Hereditary. It's not as brutal and in your face scary, but it is phenomenal. And Florence Pugh, I believe it's how you pronounce her last name, is phenomenal in Midsummer, and I'm in love with her. And I know she's with Zach Braff. I saw that, but if she sees this, if he's not treating you right, I will. I will. Anyways, I like Zach Braff, so stick with him. I'm sure he's cool. But so another God, I'm really struggling. Robert Eggers, I believe it's either Robert or Roger. I don't know why I'm having this, but he did 2 movies for A24. He did The Witch, and he did The Lighthouse. A24 is the production company that also released Hereditary and Midsommar. I mean, they're on fire. They also released Yorgos Lanthimos. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He's Greek, I think. He has movies called The Lobster, which isn't traditional horror. And he has a movie called The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is terrifying in premise. I'm not like trying to say, I'm saying all these movies are fantastic. They're all under A24, but we have filmmakers here, writer directors that are making movies in the horror genre that are far superior to anything else when it comes to originality, when it comes to plot development, when it comes to character development, when it comes to creating atmospheric setting, when it comes to nuance, when it comes to scores for films. I want horror movies to start being received the way they should be, because honest to goodness, they're on a rise that I didn't think was even possible for them. I mean, Danny McBride from the Seth Rogen kind of posse helped write with David Gordon Green fucking Halloween 2018, and if you haven't seen it, it is awesome. I fucking loved it. I like Halloween 1, Halloween 2. I don't mind the sequels just because it's more Michael Myers and he's got some creative kills and whatnot, but they're rubbish. I mean, they're terrible overall. Halloween H2O has a place in my heart, but it's because of when I saw it in theaters. It was like I snuck into an R-rated movie, blah, blah, blah. But Halloween 2018 was next level. It is the sequel that Halloween needed, and Jamie Lee Curtis is a badass in it. But basically, I mean, we had a time where horror movies were doing such stupid shit. I mean, it was just sequels, like that Saw franchise. Like, Lee Winnell wrote that first Saw movie, but oh my god, man, there were so many of them. And I hate torture porn. Like, I can't stand it. It just grosses me out. I don't think it's that scary. I think it's just gross. You know, I want to go back to movies like The Changeling. You know, these late, it was like 1970, you know, Psycho, the original Halloween, where they didn't rely on the gore and stuff. They relied on the storytelling and the filmmaking. And that was so crucial to their success. Rosemary Baby, you know, Roman Polanski is gross, but that was a fucking amazing movie. And it's because of the way they're made. It's because of the content, the way it's written, the way the script is respected, the story is respected. And I hate people who dog on horror like it's some campy trash. You know, it's not. It's art, you know, just like anything else. I wanted to talk about some older ones that I love. I talked about The Changeling, and I feel like that is a movie with George C. Scott. It's a ghost story where he moves into a house after mourning the death of his mother, not his mother, his wife and child, and he finds out the house is possessed with a spirit that has some unfinished business, and the way they just communicate with the dead in that movie and stuff was so scary, and they redid it in a new movie called a newer movie. It's not that new, but Insidious, which I loved. It was James Wan and Lee Winnell who wrote Saw. He wrote Insidious, and I thought the Insidious 1 and Insidious 2 were very scary. James Wan, the filmmaker, also did The Conjuring 1 and 2, which were also amazing. Lee Winnell went out. He was the writer of those movies in the original Saw, and I think he wrote some other Saws too. But he went out and he started directing his own movies, like Upgrade. If you saw that, it's not really scary. It's an action film. Then he went and did The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss. And she is a fantastic actress, so obviously that film was above him. That film was amazing. I haven't seen, very much lately. I pick my movies carefully, but I haven't seen anything that I haven't liked. I just finished The Haunting of Bly Manor. It wasn't as in-your-face scary as The Haunting of Hill House, but it was so good. And the kids were so good in it. And it's based on The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. And I just thought they did such a good job with that material, and it was so devastating and grim, and sometimes that's enough to give it that gothic horror element. I'm going to kind of wrap this up because I just see how long this is, and I don't plan on editing much because I really don't. I don't know. I'll get better at this, I promise. I will have, film clips in here. This was I just wanted to talk about Halloween, and I actually just wanted to get a video out and say I did it, I want to start talking about some books. Noah, come on. Stop it. Come here. What you doing? Hey, my baby. Nala. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, I want to talk about some books I've read in this kind of fall time. If It Bleeds by Stephen King. It is 4 novellas, one of which, the title story, is a Holly Gibney story. And if you know anything about Stephen King, come on, girl, I'm filming. If you know anything about Holly Gibney or Stephen King, he loves Holly Gibney. He wishes she was a real person. But she actually shows up in a trilogy called the Bill Hodges trilogy. And it's Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch. So that's the Bill Hodges trilogy. And she's just this really neurotic. She's 47 in the book, in the series. They made her younger and prettier. I think she is pretty, but she's really codependent. Her mother won't let her do anything. She still totally has her grip on her, and it's just, she's very, very funny, and she attaches herself to this kind of old curmudgeon detective who's retired named Bill Hodges, and she knows computers and stuff, so she helps him solve crimes. It's pretty awesome. It's a fantastic trilogy, but I read that a long time ago. But this, If It Bleeds, has the first Holly Gibney solo mission. She has help in it, but there's no Bill Hodges in this one, and she's featured in The Outsider, which I haven't read yet or seen it, so I can't talk about it. But I think this also has some great short stories in here. They're novellas, so they're all about 100 pages long. Some are shorter. Mr. Harrigan's Phone, The Life of Chuck. They're all really creepy. They all have a really cool meaning to them, hidden, and very fun. 4 novellas. I really recommend this. And I don't like all of his collections with short stories in them. I really don't. I like different seasons, but not a lot. I finally finished it. I've been dragging it everywhere I go for a long time. It's beat the fuck up. 1,200 pages or so. I've seen the movies, so it took me 400 to 500 pages to get to stuff I didn't know, which was tough. And it took me a much longer time to read the first half than it did to read the second half. But once I got through it and I learned the things that I'd heard about that weren't in the movie, and I finally got to read them and stuff like that. Bella, stop chewing on everything. Like, come on. Anyways, I really, really, really thought it was obviously a fantastic book. And I really think that if I hadn't seen any of the movies, like I wish I hadn't, and I wish I'd read it, because it would have blown my mind. I know it would have, because it was just that good. Stop it! Anyways, sorry, I'm not going to edit that out. It takes time, and I don't have that. So, it was fantastic. I would give it an A+, just because the story was so great. I just wish I hadn't seen the movies, because I did know a lot of what was going to happen. The movies are way more accurate than I thought they were. It Part 2, that just came out not that long ago, I have way more respect for it than I did. Anyways, moving on. Come on, girl. Come on, I'm almost done. H.P. Lovecraft, Tales of Terror. This is actually kind of a newer release. It's just got some really 9 of his most popular stories. H.P. Lovecraft inspired a lot of Stephen King's work, and pretty much every horror author ever. If you ever heard of the Cthulhu mythos, a lot of authors have like touched on that. He invented the Cthulhu mythos. This one has Dagon, which is a really short like 3-page story just about like this guy who wakes up on a deserted island and he just sees a bunch of markings and symbols that obviously were made like ages ago by these other almost deity types. So it's kind of interesting. It's pretty bland. It's pretty short. Herbert West Reanimator is in this, which is, you know, the basis of the Reanimator film. They're very different, but it's a very good story. The Call of Cthulhu, which started the Cthulhu mythos. The Dunwich Horror. The Whisper in the Darkness. At the Mountains of Madness. The Shadow over Innsmouth, The Shadow Out of Time, and one of my favorites, The Haunter of the Dark. It does. I would also, if you're gonna get H.P. Lovecraft stories, read The Color Out of Space, because that is also fantastic, and it was made into a great movie by Richard Stanley very recently. H.P. Lovecraft was a racist who actually lived with his mother forever, and was really, really just a weird, creepy guy, and he didn't really get much notoriety, I don't think, until after he was gone. But though he had real mental problems, and honestly could be a very sincere bastard, a bigot, and I have no tolerance for that, he did write some amazing literature, and it did inspire some of my favorite authors. It was a different time. That's no excuse, but I do love his work. I don't believe I would have liked him. Now, the last 2 I'm going to talk about were my favorites of all. These are twin novels. I can't see how they connect to one picture. Richard Bachman is a pseudonym for Stephen King. He wrote under that name so he could publish more books. He was limited to like 1 book a year, so he writes fast, so he wanted to be able to publish more books. So he used Richard Bachman to publish several novels, like 6, I think. And it was pretty clever to do that, obviously. And he wrote this under his own name. They came out the same year, and that same year The Green Mile came out, and it was a serialized thing, but it also came out. So he wrote 3 huge, major, best-selling novels that year. I believe it was 1995 or 96. So, I mean, if you're going to downplay Stephen King's gifts, I mean, just take a look at it's fucking math, dude. Stephen King's, he helped me a lot get through some really tough shit. So I love Stephen King with all my heart. I liked both of these. They have the same cast of characters. I mean, basically, they're just the same names. Some of them are different ages. They have different backgrounds. It's like a play. It's like 2 plays. He just used the same cast with totally different stories, but a centralized theme that is recurring in both. They have to fight the same dark power, which is by an entity who possesses people by the name of Tack in both of these stories. And Desperation is much scarier. Desperation scared the living shit out of me. The Tack has possessed a giant, like 7-foot cop in this like Nevada desert area, and he just pulls people over and brings them to this like town called Desperation, Nevada. That's a ghost town, and he puts them in like a cell, and it just goes from there. And there's a scene in the very first chapter where he pulls this like 40 I dropped some books. He picks up like two 40-year-old couple, and she's in like a different car, like it's a car they borrowed from her sister, and he finds a baggie of weed in the trunk, and he arrests them and puts them in his car. And as they're driving, they're kind of freaked, but they're also, we'll get out of this eventually. It was a mistake. He's got to do what he's got to do. It's not until after he starts, like, after a little while on the drive, they realize they're in big shit. He starts reading their Miranda rights, and he just says, you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to attorney. If you don't afford one will be pointed to. I am going to kill you. And he just keeps going with Miranda rights, and he just inserts that into it. And they're like, did I hear him right? And it's very, very scary, and it just goes from there. It picks up from there. It has some dry parts, as all his books do. The Regulators was a bit more sci-fi. This was a bit different. Similar cast of characters. Now, I felt the Regulators had a little more science fiction elements to it. There's a show that this kid watches called The Regulators, and it's kind of a Western show, and it ends up being the setting for the whole thing. It's the main setting's this perfect suburban street, and then it ends up changing as if drawn by a child. He says that a lot in the book, but I don't want to give up anything about him. I really don't want to spoil anything on accident. I want to wrap this up. I'm really happy I did this. It felt fun. I know that I was all over the place. This will improve. I'll get better at this and do a more professional job next time. But this basically is just my bunch of ranting on Halloween goodness, on horror movies that I loved, on books that were creepy that I loved, and a genre that I hold very dear to my heart. In the future, I'm going to be taking time just to review one thing at a time, maybe two, probably just one. So it won't be anything like this. This was just a special October thing I wanted to do. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff, but for now, thank you guys so much. If you did watch this, go ahead and click subscribe. Go ahead and click like, share, help me out. I'm using the same channel as all my music is on for this, so it might help get me a play here and there. Who knows? I'm being honest. Just help me out, guys. Alright. All the love. I hope everybody is doing famously on this cold, dreary day, and stay frosty.